All right. Well, it's good to see you, men. And again, good morning, everyone. Um, and an early happy birthday, I think, to PJ and Tabs, right? Are your birthdays in March? I think I
Yes,
Yes,
Pastor.
sir. Still far, sir.
so far. Yeah. Well,
Yes, Pastor.
what are you guys around 40?
A week
I'll
from now.
be 41, Pastor, on March
Wow.
24.
And I'm turning 40, sir. Yes, this next
Ah,
month, sir.
you're going to enter a special
Yeah,
club.
we're almost the same.
How are you, Pastor Entz? How old are you? 40?
14, 6 years ago was.
Oh, you're celebrating your 6th anniversary. 40.
I stopped at 40.
Yeah. Yeah, I restarted, so I'm 14 now. So, well, early happy birthday. We'll celebrate when it gets closer. Let
Thank
me
you, Pastor.
let me pull up our notes for today. We're going to continue in our discussion from last week. Oops, I'm on the wrong one here. Hold on a second. There it is. Okay. Can you guys see that okay? You can see my notes? All right, I always got to ask because sometimes I mess things up. Okay. Want to continue from our study last week in when we were looking at a few different where are we at here? Here we are. We were talking about prepositions. And again, remember, we sort of started this journey a while back, looking at diagramming and looking at each of the steps. And the first step we spent some time on just identifying the main sentence in a paragraph and the main clause in that sentence. And that's what you bring all the way over to the left. And then the second step was to basically break up the paragraph or the passage you have into its phrases and clauses. And the way to do that is to find these connector words. And so we've been spending a lot of time on them because they are so important to understand. And there's a lot of different aspects to them that make it a challenge. For example, in looking at prepositions, we can see that prepositions have 3 uses, at least in English. And those uses, and what you'll find in the different translations is you'll find those prepositional phrases, which is a preposition with a noun. You'll also find the preposition to with a verb at times, and we studied that for a little bit, and that's called an infinitive. And then lastly, we studied last week, and then we're going to spend some time this week on what were called prepositional verbs, and that's something specific to English. It's not something that we find in Greek, but what it is there are certain verbs in English that carry with them a preposition on the end of it to convey the full idea of the verb. And as a reminder as well, the prepositional phrases, as we think about diagramming, you're always thinking about how a phrase or clause modifies something else. Okay, in a diagram, when we break everything up into all the phrases and clauses, then our next step after that, our third step is here, what does each phrase modify and how? And so you want to be thinking basic. In fact, let me just take a moment right now and do this. I can't remember if I did this with you guys. Now, if you think of, okay, let's talk about epistles. All right. Epistles are made up of paragraphs. Okay, so you have paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, right? You have and each paragraph represents a unit of thought. Okay, right? An epistle, the author, he is prompted to write because of some circumstance, some situation that takes place. that prompts him to write a letter to the church or to a person. And in that letter, he has a particular message or purpose, right? So, for example, we can think of the letter to the Philippians. All right, Paul just didn't one day feel some stirring in his stomach that said, I need to write an epistle today. God's leading me to write an epistle for the New Testament today. Let's see. I'll just write one to the Philippian church. Okay, that's not how it happened, right? Paul was prompted to write a letter to the Philippians because two reasons. One, the Philippians had sent him a gift, right? They'd sent him supplies. Probably remember he was in prison. And if you're in prison in Rome in those days, basically you needed someone else to provide you what you needed to live. The prison wasn't going to do that for you. And so he was living in house arrest as a prisoner in Rome. The Philippians send him some help. They were known as givers, right? Corinthians talks about the Macedonians being very generous people. And so they send a gift to Paul with, was it Epaphroditus? I think Epaphroditus. And Epaphroditus also tells Paul how the church is doing. So yeah, they're sharing the gospel. People are becoming Christians. But Paul, there's these two ladies. Do you remember Euodia and Syntyche? They're having a conflict right now, and it's a problem. And so Paul, upon hearing about how the Philippians are doing, and upon receiving that gift, he decides to write them a letter. And in that letter, he not only wants to thank them for the gift, but he wants to address this issue of that conflict between those two prominent women. And so that's why the letter to the Philippians is really centered around unity. He talks about unity all through the letter. And the reason he does that is that's his purpose. He wants to encourage them to pursue unity as a church, because if they don't, that will hinder the gospel witness. Okay, and so my whole point is this, is that, an epistle is prompted, there's a set of circumstances that prompt the author to write, and there's a purpose in his letter. Okay, and that purpose is expressed through his flow of thought. So there's each paragraph represents a unit of thought, and then all connected together, they present this purpose or this theme of the letter, this reason that the letter was written. It's the same for poetry, right? If you open up the Psalms, every poem has an occasion and a purpose. There's a reason the poet wrote the poem, and there's a message that he's trying to convey in that poem. Sometimes the poems are simply prayers to God, right? Psalm 13, a terrible circumstance comes upon David, and he's lamenting, God, where have you gone? How long will you abandon me? And so he writes this psalm as a prayer to God, as a cry for help. So that's the purpose in that psalm. And the psalm was prompted by some situation in his life that brought him to be very discouraged and depressed. It's the same with every book of the Bible. There's something that prompts the author to write, an occasion. And then he writes a particular book in order for a specific purpose, to communicate a specific message. And in epistles, that message is communicated through paragraphs, through each unit of thought connected together to present an overall message or purpose of the author. And then those paragraphs, if we think about a paragraph, what is a paragraph made up of? Sentences, right? At least one sentence. Okay, no, usually more than one sentence. Okay, the unit of thought is expressed in several sentences. Okay, oops, let's do this. Now, each sentence is made up of what we've been talking about here. Each sentence is made up of phrases and clauses. So I can take now a sentence is made up of phrase. Well, there's one main clause, right? Phrase, maybe another phrase, another clause, etc., right? So as we think about this, now, what are clauses and phrases made up of? What are the basic building blocks of a clause and a phrase? Who can tell me? Anybody have an idea?
Words.
They're made up of words, and there's certain kinds of words. There's 4 basic types of words. That's a lie. There, I think 6, but 4 that are fundamental. Okay. Noun.
Noun. Pronoun.
Anyone want to guess what the other ones might be?
Verbs, adjectives.
Adjective. Good.
Adverbs.
Yes. Now also articles. Okay.
Articles.
But articles might be in there. So, but the 4 main building blocks are the noun, the verb, the adjective, and the adverb. Those are the basic building blocks of a clause. And a phrase, again, remember, a clause is defined as having a subject and a verb. Now, a phrase does not have both a subject and a verb, okay? It can have a verb, but it does not have a subject and a verb. So generally phrases, though they can be made up of nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and verbs at times. Okay? So these 4 parts of speech are the basic building blocks of clauses and phrases. And those clauses and phrases are then the building blocks for sentences. Those sentences are the building blocks for paragraphs. Paragraphs are building blocks for epistles. Now, if we were talking about poetry, we would say stanzas are made up of sentences, and the stanzas together make up the poem. Okay? So, let's talk about these for a second, and I will come back around to where we started but I know this is sort of grammar 101, but I think it's very important that we understand and have in our minds what these things are, because they are the fundamental pieces for what we're doing, the sentences here. So let me ask Tabs about this. Tabs, can you tell me what is a noun?
The noun is what the sentence is about. Yeah.
Okay, even more
Sometimes the subject.
more basic definition even than that.
More basic. What's the base? Noun is the.
What you were describing is a subject of the
Yeah,
sentence,
the
but
subject
we
of
want to
the
talk
sentence.
about nouns. Nouns is even more basic.
Nouns, they are either the doers of action or something that the sentence talks about, Pastor.
Okay, keep going. I'm looking for something even more
Even more basic.
simpler and basic.
Now,
You didn't know you
man,
get
I
English
forgot.
lesson. Someone want to help out?
I forgot the basics already.
That's why we're doing it.
Name of persons, things.
Yeah,
Or
person,
idea.
Yeah.
place,
Persons, places,
things.
Places.
Yeah.
That can include,
I
things
remember.
can include ideas, right?
Yes, Pastor.
So, I think some examples. Tabs, give me an example of a person, a noun, person.
Person, the boy.
Okay, boy. Tabs, right? Pastor. Okay, he, she, those are pronouns, but they're in the class of nouns, right?
Yes.
Okay, how about place?
House,
Yeah. House, church,
church, market,
market, bog. It can be a specific place, Baguio, right? Luzon. Those are places, right? The CR, that's a noun, okay, right? All right, things. Now, things can be lots of things. It can be animals, right? Dog, right? Bird. It can be objects, box, car. It can be ideas, right? Freedom, slavery, okay? So these are examples of nouns. They are defined in a general way as a person, place, or thing. All right, so it's a broad category. Nouns are extremely common. Okay. Now the second building block, BJ, I'm going to ask you about this. Can you give a simple definition of a verb?
It's an action word. Action word.
Okay, good. Expresses an action. Now, are verbs do they only express actions? Let me give you an example. BJ is a business owner. Is that what's the verb here in this sentence?
I guess is.
Yeah, good guess. Okay, yeah, is the verb, but is an action?
Action.
Are you doing
No,
something
sir.
in this sentence?
No.
Expresses an action or
Mm-mm.
a state of being.
Mm.
So there's two kinds of verbs. Okay, there are action verbs, like an action verb would be BJ plays basketball. Okay, plays is an action, right? But the verb is also a verb. Okay, so there are two kinds of verbs. I call one verbs of action. Okay, what might be some examples of verbs of action, BJ?
Talk, preach.
Okay, took, preach.
No, talk. Sorry, ko.
Oh,
Yeah.
talk, sorry. Took
Yes.
also.
Preach, run,
Yeah. Here,
exercise,
find, exercise, right? There's right, love. There's lots of action verbs. How about verbs of being? Okay, we know is one of them. What are some other verbs of being where they just describe a state?
is, was, were,
Yep.
uh,
Become, will be,
became.
became. Okay. So these are all am, are. Okay, so these verbs of being are describing the state of something. In this case, BJ is a business owner. It's not describing action done by BJ, but it is a verb and it's describing something about BJ. So think of a verb as simply it expresses an action or a state of being. Okay? Those are verbs. All right. Now, a noun and a verb each have their own girlfriend, okay? Noun has a girlfriend called an adjective. Or maybe I should say, okay? He has adjectives go with nouns. In what way? And I'm going to ask Brother Harris can you give just a simple definition of an adjective?
Adjectives are words that describe a noun, Pastor.
That's a good simple definition. They describe a noun. What kind, how many, which one, who. Okay, these are all, they describe a noun. So can you give a couple examples, Harris?
Handsome, beautiful,
Yeah.
skillful.
Handsome, beautiful.
intelligent,
So if we'd say, yeah, intelligent. So, for example, Harris is a smart engineer. Where's the adjective in the sentence, Harris?
smart, Pastor.
Smart. Okay. And what noun is it modifying?
The engineer.
The engineer. It's telling us something about the engineer. What kind of engineer? Okay, how about this one? Harris read 3 chapters. Where's the
Three,
adjective here?
The adjective is 3.
Yeah, telling how many. Okay, another example might be the tall man bumped his head. Okay, what would the adjective there be?
The tall, Pastor, tall.
Tall. Now what if I had said
Adjective.
bumped his big head? Another
Big is
adjective,
also-
right? Okay, so these are simply examples of words that describe a noun. Okay, now we'll go to an adverb here. Oh, who did we lose? Somebody saw these grammar words and ran away. Who was with us? I forgot who left. Oh, Brother Raleigh. Okay, so Brother Manny, adverbs. Can you give us a simple definition of an adverb?
Pastor Tim, adverbs are words that modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs.
Very good. So we could say they modify or describe. I think modify is a good word. Modify a verb as well as at times adjectives and adverbs. Okay. All right. So we've got these 4. And we'll do a couple examples in a minute here. Just let me do this. Okay. Can you give a few examples of an adverb, Manny?
He spoke gently. Gently is the adverb,
Good.
modifying the way he spoke.
Yeah, how he spoke, right? So they answer where, when, why, or how of the verb, okay? He spoke gently. Good. Any other? Can you give me another example?
She walked slowly.
She walked slowly. Okay, good. Again, slowly describes how she walked, right? How about this one? Preach the sermon now. What do you see an adverb here?
Pastor, is it the word now?
Yeah, because it's telling us when to preach. Okay, so it's modifying the action, even though it's not next to the verb, it's modifying the verb, right? Because it would be more awkward in English. We wouldn't say it this way. We wouldn't say preach now the sermon. That's not how you would normally see it in English. So we move the word now. Okay. But now is describing when. Okay. Or let's see. Manny ran to the store quickly. Where's the adverb there?
The adverb is quickly.
Yeah.
Modifying run.
And what question is it answering?
how Manny ran.
Yes. And we could have phrased it this way. Manny ran quickly to the store. So sometimes adverbs can slide around. All right. They don't have to be next to the word they modify. All right. Now, I'm bringing this up for this basic reason. All right. We have these 4 building blocks. Again, remember, we started here. Okay. Clauses are made up of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Okay. Now some clauses are just a noun and a verb, but they can also contain adjectives and adverbs. And so these 4, let's see the size of that. It's very important that you have that these 4 basic building blocks are embedded in your minds because of this reason. When we go to diagramming, basically what we're going to find is prepositional phrases, for example, can function like adjectives or adverbs. So we're going to find that phrases and clauses can actually act like an adverb or an adjective, and as they modify a particular word in a sentence. So for example, let me she drove her car to the church. Okay. Tabs, let me ask you on this one. Where's the
Yes, Pastor.
prepositional phrase here? Or why don't you identify each of the words in this sentence here?
Okay. First the subject is she, and then the verb is drove, and then the object is her car, and then the prepositional phrase is to the church because it answers the question, where did she drive her car to?
Yes. And so how is to the church functioning here?
The prepositional phrase is modifying the verb drove, the action of driving.
Yeah,
It's
so it's acting like,
I think it's acting like it can be like a noun, Pastor.
well, if
Is it?
to the church, you said is modifying
An
drove.
adjective, Pastor, because it is describing where she drove the car.
It's describing where. So therefore it's acting like an
An
adverb.
adjective.
No, an adverb. It's
Ah,
modifying the
because it
verb.
modifies the verb. Okay.
Okay, so this is what you guys have to just memorize this. Adjectives modify nouns. They say what kind, which one, how many, who. Adverbs modify verbs. And you've got a hint right in the word there, right? Adverb. So I don't know why the other one's not called an ad noun. That would make sense to me, but it's not. I don't even know what adjective means. I don't even know where it came from. Adverb sort of makes sense to me because you're adding to a verb. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Adjective, what? Wait a minute. No, add noun. But I don't think anyone will listen to me, so I think we're stuck with adjective. But you've got to memorize these 4 parts of speech because, as I said, nouns and verbs I think are generally easy to spot, but then you're going to have phrases and clauses, and they're going to act like either an adjective or an adverb. Meaning, some phrases, like she drove her car to the church. To the church is a prepositional phrase acting like an adverb because it's telling us where she drove. Now we could have had the man at the church fell asleep. All right. This prepositional phrase, or maybe let me do this. This is probably more straightforward. The man with the hat fell asleep at the church. Okay, in this case, with the hat is describing the man, right? It's telling us something about the man. Which man? The man with the hat. So, Tabs, how is this prepositional phrase with the hat functioning here?
It's functioning as an adjective, Pastor.
There you go. Or an add noun. We can call it add noun here, just among us, okay? Is modifying, with the hat is modifying the man, telling us which man or what kind of man, and therefore it's acting, yeah, like an I'm going to just type it, add noun. All right, there it is. Okay. So, or we could have this, so that these are prepositional phrases. They can act like an adjective or an adverb. All right. Now we talked about, and this is where I'm going to bring it back around to where we started, where I mentioned to you, oops, actually I didn't get to it yet. The reason I'm bringing this up is this. Okay, we have these connector words, we have conjunctions, and we have prepositions. And under the preposition category, we have to be careful because there are 3 uses of prepositions in English. As I mentioned at the beginning, one use, the most common use, is as a prepositional phrase. So like we saw here, with the hat, to the church, at the mall, right? For salvation. I mean, those are prepositional phrases. And prepositional phrases can act like adjectives or adverbs. That means prepositional phrases can modify verbs or nouns in the sentence. So we have to be aware of that. Now, we talked about infinitives a while back, and I'd mentioned then infinitives can act like nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. They are difficult to identify sometimes what they're modifying because they can function in many different ways. Remember, we went through several examples. I love to walk. Okay, to walk is my infinitive, the word preposition to plus walk. And here, anyone tell me what is it acting like in this sentence? Any guesses? I have a subject, I have a verb, love.
Is it functioning as an adverb, Pastor?
In this case, actually, it's functioning as the object. But thanks for trying. So it's acting like a noun. Now, an adverb would be, let's see. Trying to use the word to walk in a. I'm not going to use to walk as a. I'll just do something else. Okay, he preached the sermon to save souls. All right, to save is my infinitive. And in this case, tabs, it is acting like an adverb, telling us why he preached. Okay, so here would be an example of, and then the object is sermon, and to save is an infinitive, but it's functioning like an adverb, modifying preached, telling us why he preached.
So
Okay?
if it's a simple sentence like I love to walk, if it's an if it's an object, do we what's this? Do we already know that if it's like a simple sentence like this, that if it's an object, it's already the infinitive already functions as a noun? Is it like
Well,
that?
remember nouns,
Because I'm
subject
having
and
a hard
object,
time understanding why it's a noun, functioning as a
because
noun.
a noun, it's functioning like a noun here, because a noun, a subject and object are always nouns.
Ah, okay.
All right? They're always a person, place, or thing. So here, to walk is a thing in this sentence.
Okay.
Because if we were just to say, I love what? Okay, to answer that, the answer is I love to walk. So the what is to walk. So it's acting like a noun there. It's a thing in that sentence. All right? But here he preached the sermon to save souls. To save is now, it's not a noun, it's acting like an adverb because it's modifying preach, telling us why. Okay? Or you could say to save souls, you must preach. Again, acting like an adverb because it's telling us why. Let's do another example. To walk helps me stay healthy. All right. How is the infinitive acting in this sentence? Manny, you want to try answering that?
To walk, Pastor Tim, in this sentence functions as the subject.
Yes. So if it's the subject, then, so to walk, and that's the verb, and then the object is me. This is functioning how then? A noun, verb, adjective, adverb.
It's a noun in this sentence, Pastor Tim.
And that's exactly how you should put it. It's a noun in this sentence. That is the perfect way to say that. By the way, I didn't do this to you guys in class. I didn't do this to you before when we talked about infinitives because this is very technical, but stay. To walk helps me stay healthy. What's going on here? What are those words? How do they fit in here? And this is actually a lot more complicated, but I just wanted to, I ignored this before, but I think you will see this. To walk helps me. What if I had said this? To stay healthy. Okay, that's saying the same thing as stay healthy. This is a verbal here. Stay is, and it's called, you ready, guys? A bare infinitive. Meaning it's naked. It doesn't have its friend to. To is like a shirt. And when the verb is without its shirt, it's a bare infinitive. And here it is functioning in the sentence as part of the object. So we're not going to spend any time on this. I just, there is, is such a thing as a bare infinitive, where it's an infinitive without the preposition, if you can imagine that. All right. So, but that's craziness. So we're not gonna talk about it. I'm just even gonna erase it. You never saw it. It was never there. All right. We're not gonna worry about it. Okay. So we have here 3 uses of the preposition. We have the prepositional phrase. We have the infinitive. And infinitives can act like nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. Prepositional phrase can act like an adjective or an adverb. And then we have what we talked about last week, these prepositional verbs. Okay? And they act only like a verb. They're a special class of verbs in English. Okay, if you remember, like call to, fell upon, lift up, run down. Okay, these are words you're going to find in English in sentences where you see there's a preposition that follows the verb, and it's not part of a prepositional phrase. So, for example, he fell upon the man. Okay, fell upon in this case is together the verb. All right, it's not he fell and then the prepositional phrase upon the man. But actually what we have here is he fell upon the man. It's an English idiom. There are certain verbs in English that in order to convey the full idea of the verb, the intended idea, there's a preposition attached to the verb. So again, these are what are called prepositional verbs. Now, as I said last time, these prepositional verbs are not, Greek does not have prepositional verbs. All right. It has verbs that sometimes when an English translation translates the verb, in English, it'll be a prepositional verb, meaning it'll be the verb with the preposition on the end of it. Okay. And we looked at several examples last week. So for example, here, well, he fell upon the man, one example. I called out to BJ. All right, called out is the full verb here. And notice it's called and then a preposition. Okay, so I hope those of you that were a part of our discussion last week sort of remember those. Okay, we're going to do some more examples of them today, but so of everything that I've covered so far, sort of reviewing the basic building blocks, the noun, verb, adjective, and adverb, talking about the 3 uses of the preposition, prepositional phrase, and infinitive, and these prepositional verb, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Do you guys have any questions? Have I totally lost you guys? Or I'm hoping that it was a review to help remind you some things. Any questions? Just cries of agony, huh? That's why you muted yourselves. Oh, this is so painful. Oh, but I want to torture myself each week and listen to this grammar stuff. Oh. All right. Just keep reminding yourself, the better you are at grammar, the better you're going to be at interpreting Scripture because, again, Scripture, truths have been conveyed in Scripture through words which follow grammatical rules. All right, and so the better we understand these grammatical concepts, the better we're going to be at interpreting. And you really have to embed this one in your mind. Okay, the nouns, verb, adjective, and adverbs. Okay, those are fundamental components because we're going to come back to them time and time again. All right. Okay, well, let's talk a little more about these prepositional verbs. Let me see. Oh, okay. So here's one example. Turn around the car now. And then turn around is a command. So the subject, the implied subject is you, right? And notice turn around is my prepositional verb. Okay. And then I threw in a little adverb there for fun. Now it's modifying the verb. It's telling us when. Turn around the car now. Now what sometimes, and this is what really makes life fun with these prepositional verbs, sometimes the object splits the prepositional verb. So you'll often see a sentence like this, turn the car around now. See what happened? Notice this prepositional verb was split by the object. So here we have part of the verb. So I'll say V1, the object, and then V2. And V1 and V2 are part of this. It's part of the same verb, the prepositional verb turn around. You are going to see this. I will show you a couple examples in Scripture where we have this type of thing happen. Okay? So that's why I'm pointing out. All right, so let's go to that. I'm going to have you guys, let's go through the examples here, and I just want you to identify the prepositional verb and then tell us the object of that prepositional verb. Okay, Athan, are you with us? Is the baby asleep? Can you answer this first one for us? Are you there? Maybe he fell asleep too.
So, sorry, Pastor, are you talking to me? Sorry.
I was talking to Athan, but Gary, go ahead. You can do this one. I was going to pick you next.
I'm just in another meeting. I'll answer
Oh.
later.
Oh, okay. No problem. Sorry. All right. That means Tabs, we're back to you. Okay. See if you can find the prepositional verb or verbs in this passage. Again, look for a verb followed by a preposition. That's a possibility.
The possible prepositional verbs, Pastor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just look for
James,
the possible ones. We'll confirm whether they are in a minute.
okay. James 5:16. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, so that you may be healed. The effective prayer of a righteous man can accomplish much. I think I saw one possible would be pray for, Pastor.
Okay, good. Yeah, notice it does follow. So we have pray for. And that's a possibility. So is it pray for? Or is it for one another? That's the question we want to ask. And as I said, probably the best way to confirm which it is, there's two ways. All right. One will be, let's look at the interlinear. And what was that, James 5:16?
Yes, Pastor.
Okay, so I'm going to pull that up for you, Tabs, and then you can tell us.
Yes, it's there, Pastor. It says there's a conjunction and then pray for.
Yeah.
Preposition is there.
So the interlinear shows us there is a preposition, isn't there?
Yes, Pastor.
So is pray for a prepositional verb? Or is it for one another?
It's for one another.
Yes. So in this case, even though it looked like a prepositional verb, when we go back to the Greek, we realize, oh, it's not pray, it's pray, it's confess and pray, and then for one another is the content of that prayer. All right. Now, you could have had, though, and pray for can be a prepositional verb at times, as you know, I will pray for you. And sometimes in English, that can be a prepositional verb. But in this case, the interlinear showed us clearly the preposition for. Okay, I'll show you that again in case you guys didn't catch that. Notice here, and pray, the verb pray, and then the preposition for, huper. Oops. Can you see that? And then it tells you right below it, preposition. So we know in this case, it is not a prepositional verb. Now, if that preposition was not there, what you would have probably seen is in the verb pray for would have been underneath it as a translation. But that wasn't the case here. Any questions on this one? All right. Manny, I'm going to give you the next one. Identify any possible prepositional verbs here.
Pastor Tim, the possible prepositional verb is pointing out.
Yes. Okay. Now we do have preposition to here, but things to is not a verb, right? Things is not a verb. And then of is another preposition, but servant is not a verb either, right? The only possibility is we have out, which is a preposition, pointing out. Now, it's only a possibility because we have either two, we have pointing out as a prepositional verb, or it is out these things, which would be an awkward prepositional phrase, but it's possible. So let's check our interlinear first. And Manny, you can tell us what you see there. 1 Timothy 4:6. All right, tell us what you see there.
1 Timothy 4:6. These things laying before the verb. Laying before was the phrase translated as pointing out, and it's
Notice their translation is a prepositional verb, laying before. See that? And there's no preposition after it.
If there is, so it is followed by the definite article which goes with the brothers. So in English, it's a prepositional verb, Pastor Tim, the absence of the part preposition.
Yes, that's a big clue that you don't see the preposition here like you did in the last passage. James 5:16 showed a preposition there in the Greek, but this time we don't see it. And notice that the interlinear translates it with a prepositional verb, laying before. All right, before is a preposition. Okay, now another way to reinforce this, Ence, you got a question?
Yes, Pastor. Is it also possible, even before going to the interlinear, that you can already confirm whether it is a prepositional verb or not by looking at the other translations that possibly did not use verbs with compounding other possible preposition.
Yeah, great. That's exactly where I was going. I was going to have show you a couple of the other translations, because that's a great way as well to confirm that. So excellent suggestion. Let's pop over to, so let's look at 1 Timothy 4:16. Or 6, I mean, sorry. Okay, this is the New American Standard, and it has pointing out these things. All right, let's look at English. If you put these things, there's no, they translated that verb as just put instead of pointing out. Do you see that? The NIV. If you point these things out, whoa, look what they did. They made it even more complicated for us. They have point out, but notice they split the prepositional verb. They stuck the object in between it. Those NIV translators, they're trying to trick us. Actually, no, that in English, that is very common. I showed you an example a moment ago, right? When I said turn the car around. Well, here's a perfect example. The NIV translates it as point out, translates the verb as point out, but they stick the object in between. If you point these things out, notice the New American Standard had in pointing out these things. So it put the prepositional verb together, and then the object is these things. You see what they did? Now, the New King James, notice they translated it as instruct. Okay, so let me summarize for you then. Okay, we have the New American Standard said pointing out these things, right? The ESV said put these things. The NIV said point these things out. The New King James says instruct in these things. All right, so notice, here's the verb in each case. It's the same Greek verb, but it's being translated either as a prepositional verb or a regular verb in English. Okay, and in English, pointing out or instructing it's the same idea. There's an English verb, instruct, right, or teach. Pointing out has that same idea. It's to show somebody something and teaching them. Like, for example, I am pointing out to you what prepositional verbs are. So pointing out is, again, it's an idiom, an English idiom, which is equivalent to instruct or even teach or show. Okay? And so, yeah, hence it's a very good suggestion. When you look at other translations, you'll notice, hey, wait a minute. ESV doesn't have a prepositional verb here. It doesn't have a out here. It has put. The New King James has instruct. So, pointing out is, it seems like it's just a prepositional verb. And that's what the interlinear confirms. All right. So that's a really good way to sort of do these two steps together. Now, what does all of this mean? How does it affect the diagram? What is the significance or importance importance of this? Well, because now if you're to diagram this, if I know that it's a prepositional verb, then I keep that together. So let's see, I'm pointing out the, here is, okay, this is going to be an interesting diagram. Okay, how do you like this one? All right, the main sentence here is you will be a good servant. That's the main subject and verb and object. Now, in pointing out is describing how you will be a good servant. To the brethren is where you are pointing out these things. And notice I put pointing out together because it is a verb. And then of Jesus Christ is describing which servant. So that's a modifying servant. Any questions on that diagram? Now, if I did not realize this was a prepositional verb, then I could have done something like this. If I thought that out these things was some kind of prepositional phrase, I could have ended up doing this. Could have said, well, out these things is some kind of prepositional phrase, maybe modifying pointing. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. Okay, again, this would be a weird prepositional phrase, but that's why that's the change or difference you would see in how it would be diagrammed. Because I know pointing out is actually the full verb, I put it together as a verb. So we have the verb and then the object of the verb is things, these things. Okay, so this is not the right diagram because pointing out is a prepositional verb. Questions?
Pastor, this is Gary. So in reading this particular verse, for example, over and over again, you will, by just looking at it, you will get a feeling that it's really the arrangement would naturally be pointing out, you know, as I see it, if I'm going to read it over and over again, it will naturally tell you that the pointing out would be the the prepositional phrase here.
I'm sorry. So can you ask your question again? I didn't.
No. What I'm
Or
saying
you just
is,
make an observation.
yeah, just by making an observation, the pointing out there, the phrase there is would naturally be come together.
Yeah.
Like for example, reaching out, uh, speaking of, or something like that. It's always goes together.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I think the more you're used to English and speaking English, then those prepositional verbs, I think you'll recognize more easily. But I'm going through this because you're going to be going, as you're studying a passage, and you're going to see the preposition out, and you're going to automatically think, oh, it's prepositional phrase, out these things. But I'm trying to show you that that's not always going to be the case.
Okay.
Okay, because
you.
like, for example, here we have the preposition to, we have the preposition out, and we have the preposition of in this particular verse, right? And so
Yeah.
what I want you guys to be aware of is if you have a preposition that follows a verb, there's a possibility that it goes with the
Mhm.
verb. Now, the preposition to, we know, is going to be a prepositional phrase because it's followed by a noun, brethren, and two, the word before it is not a verb.
Okay.
Now, the trick the trick with this word to, though, is if to was followed by a verb, then it would be an infinitive. So you've got those three possibilities when you have a preposition. It's either a prepositional phrase, could be an infinitive if I see the word to, or it could be a prepositional verb. And so for example, of, okay, I know of is a preposition and it's followed by a noun. Okay, so that's potential prepositional phrase, and it comes after a noun. So I know it's not a prepositional verb. I know it's not an infinitive because it's not to plus a verb. And so it must be a prepositional phrase. Hallelujah. I can handle those. But I don't know about these prepositional verbs. All right. But the clue is just look before the preposition to see. And in this case, out does have a verb before it. So it's a possibility that it's a prepositional verb. So I just want you to be aware of that. So let's pick out, I'm going to have you do a couple more examples just to, Gary, you still with us? Would you be able to do this one?
Pastor, can I pass?
Sure, no problem. You don't even want to try? All right, we'll let BJ, you haven't done one in a while, right? Give it a try.
Not this, sir. Sure, sir.
Right. See if you
But,
can identify the possible prepositional verb here. If you're not sure,
Steers up.
okay. Stirs up. That's a possibility, right? Up is a preposition. Up is the preposition, and it's got a verb right before it.
Verb. Yes,
So
sir.
that one would be, is it stirs up? Or is it up dissension? Okay. So let's go with first let's check the interlinear. All right, so pop over to Bible Hub. Oops. Pop over to where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Bible Hub. And pull up Acts 24:5. And BJ, just look through here and see if you can find that verb and if you see a preposition after it.
It's steering insurrection, Pastor Sean. So,
Do you see another preposition there after it?
no, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Okay, so it's likely a prepositional verb. All right. And then, so let's check. So you guys all see that? Here's the verb. It's translated as stirring. By the way, guys, what kind of verb is this?
Present participle.
Participle.
The participle. Ah, okay. but we don't see any preposition here, Greek preposition. So that's one thing to consider. All right, and then the second is, let's look at the other English translations and see what those tell us. All right, so we're in Acts 24:5. So the New American Standard has stirs up. Okay. All right, BJ, what about the ESV here?
Same, sir. Stirs up.
Okay, it stirs up. How about the NIV?
Stirring up, sir.
Stirring up. All right, so it translated it as a participle, interestingly. How about New King James?
Creator of.
Yeah, creator. And then they have of the century. Now, is creator a verb or a noun?
Noun, sir.
Very good. It's a noun. So the New King James actually took this verb stirring participle and translated it as a noun. Creator. That's pretty interpretive. How about the Net Bible? Let's see what they did.
Troublemaker. One who stirs up.
It stirs up. Yep.
Stirs up.
Stirs up. All right. And I think I didn't put it here. I'll pop in one more. The Holman Christian. Sometimes I use that one. And note it. What does the Holman Christian say? Verse 5.
An agitator.
An agitator. Again, a noun.
Mhm.
So this is kind of an interesting difference. This would be one you would want to do a word study on, by the way, because notice the different translations. We have the New American Standard and ESV have, stir up. The NIV has stirring up. And then we found the New King James says creator. It's a noun. And the Holman says agitator. All right, so we have all these different options here, but notice, again, through this, that just confirms for us this idea that it is a prepositional verb, all right? Because we have these different ways they have translated it. So it is stirs up is a prepositional verb in this case. Okay. I just wanted you to see, notice how they took this and they actually, some guys interpreted it as a noun. So they made it even more interpretive, right? Because the verb is literally, right? The verb is literally stirring, a participle. So in the NIV actually had the best translation here. Okay. Any questions on this one? Stirs up, you'll find actually used several times in the New Testament. It's a fairly common prepositional verb. All right. Renee, welcome. I'm going to give this one to you. Good morning.
Good morning, Pastor Tim. Good
Just
morning.
having everybody identify the potential prepositional verbs.
Consider it,
Okay.
or steer you up.
All right. So let's ask a question here. Consider it. That word "it" is it a preposition? We first have to ask that question.
No, it's not a preposition.
No, it's what is it? Is it called a demonstrative pronoun? I can't remember. Does anyone remember? Is that right? It's a pronoun, but I don't remember what kind. So no, that's not, consider it would not be a prepositional verb because it is not a preposition. Now, stir you up. Notice though, we have you there in between, stir and up. See that?
Yes.
So this is one of those complicated ones where it looks like the object, you, is forced its way in between stir and up. Okay? So let's do the drill here. Let's check out the interlinear, and we'll just do this one quickly. If my Bible software. Okay, 2 Peter 1:13. All right. Pastor Renee, see if you can find the verb in here. And
It says here, the translation, to steer up.
yeah, you can see it there.
Yes.
Now notice there's a couple things here, and then there's you, there's the object.
Yes.
What kind of word is this?
It's an infinitive.
So do you see what's going on here? Oh, you gotta love English. I mean, this is great. Notice here, we've got two things going on. We got three things going on with this little situation here. To stir you up. All right, we've got one. It's an infinitive. Notice the Greek interlinear showed us that it's an infinitive. The infinitive is to stir up. So the verb, remember, an infinitive is to plus a verb, right? In this case, the verb is actually a prepositional verb. So you've got to, it's really to stir up. And notice you've got a preposition before and a preposition after, and they all go together to make up the verbal idea. Right? You want to go crazy. And even more, so we have one, we have an infinitive. Two, we have a prepositional verb here. And three, we've got the object stuck in between the prepositional verb. That object you. So, I mean, this can get pretty complicated. All right. But there's these things exist out there in the translations, okay? So I just want you to be aware of that here, okay? And you'll spot these more easily the more practice you do. But I just wanted to show you this one because of, look at all the, we do have a prepositional verb, but it is part of an infinitive.
Pastor, question.
Yes.
Pastor, how will this affect the diagram?
Well, let's diagram it. Okay, I consider it right. Here, let's put this in. Okay. Oh man, I'm just gonna be. I consider it right. Okay, when is as long as I am in this dwelling. I consider it right to stir you up. And then how is by way of reminder. So the it is to stir you up. I consider to stir you up. Technically, right is how I consider it. As long as is how is when I consider it, right? To stir you up is actually modifying it. I can, because literally you could say it this way. I consider to stir you up right.
Mm,
Because the it is to stir you up. That's what I consider right.
okay.
Okay? So I put it under it here.
I had a similar problem when I was diagramming Romans chapter 7 verse 18.
Romans 7.
Because yeah, verse 18, because I was diagramming Romans 7:14 to 20, but I got confused with verse 18 because I wasn't checking the interlinear yet, and I had difficulty with verse 18 where
Which
it says
part?
for the willing is present in me, but the doing of the good is not. I just checked now while we were in class, and for the willing, I thought it was a participle, but
Oh,
I checked the interlinear. It was an infinitive. That's why I asked how do you diagram something that you think is a participle, but it's an infinitive when you check it in the interlinear. Because I got
okay.
confused in this part while I was diagramming it. Or do I still keep it as for the willing? Ah, I got confused. I just put everything together.
All right. Well, let's this is Romans 7:18. Okay, for. So what's I know that. Okay, so this is the subject is I, right? The
Yes,
verb is
Pastor.
know,
Yes,
and then
Pastor.
that nothing good dwells in me, that's the object.
Yes, Pastor.
It's what I
I
know.
kept all of I kept all of that together. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Okay,
And
good.
then I split it in that is. I split it there.
Yeah, that is,
Ah,
or specifically, I would say in my flesh. Now,
yeah.
for, I
I
think
got
that's
that first
why.
part bit.
It's modifying know, right? Why I
Yes,
know.
Pastor.
For the
Yes,
willing
Pastor.
is present, where?
In me.
In me, but the doing of the good is not. And then
Yes,
implied
Pastor.
present in me, right? That's
Yes,
the
Pastor.
implied. Okay, so that's what I would do with that.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter, Pastor, if it is an infinitive in the interlinear. It's still this way.
Okay, well, this is, okay, I'm just taking the English. Now
Okay. Okay.
we go to the interlinear. You guys, before I keep, you guys follow this diagram?
Because this is how I diagrammed it also, Pastor. But I'm just asking if since I checked the interlinear now, that the willing is translated as an infinitive in the interlinear, will it affect my diagram in any way?
Well, let's see what the, all right. Okay, for, I know. that, okay, here's the direct object marker, if you care to know. So that nothing dwells in me, this is the object of no. That is, or specifically, in the flesh, my flesh, nothing good. So interesting.
And then the next
Okay, that's
portion is
another
the
issue. Okay,
fourth
for to will is present in me, but to do the good is not. So you guys see what he's asking? Technically, it's not the willing, it's technically an infinitive here. To will. All right. And you see that, so to will, and then to do. Okay. So let's go back to the diagram then. So literally, and I just put it in here. Do you see this? Literally, that's to will. Okay, so we just looked at an example of this earlier. How is this infinitive functioning here? As a noun, an adjective, or an adverb?
Sir?
As a noun.
Yes.
To will is the subject here of this clause, meaning it's functioning as a noun. So it does not change the diagram. The willing is also a noun. And remember, that's called a gerund,
Okay.
which gerunds function only as nouns. So they took an infinitive and to try to make it more, I guess, easier to read, they made it the willing instead of to will. But I would have left it as to will is present, but to do is not.
Am I right, Pastor? Because if I did not check the interlinear, in my mind, it would have been left as an action rather than
No,
no, no. Oh,
no,
okay.
because
Okay.
the willing is, remember, it's called a gerund. Remember, a gerund is
Okay.
a verb plus the ing ending acting like a noun.
Because it says the willing is present.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. I
that's what you
understand.
have to, yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly what I want you to be doing. Think about how is this working here? And in this case, good, you saw the clue. There's the verb is. So what's before it has to be the subject, even though it doesn't look, it looks like a verb, but it's the willing. Or they could have left it literally to will. They translated it the willing, and it's the same with the doing. That's a gerund. All right.
Okay.
And in this case, it's they're functioning as a subject. And again, remember, subject have to be nouns. And so it does not change your diagram at all,
Okay. Thank you, Pastor.
because the function is the same. To will is an infinitive acting like a noun because it's the subject, or the willing is another way to say it. But I like to be more literal in this case because I think that's closer to being more, it's more precise.
So in my diagram, it would be better if I put the to will and to do.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor.
Anyone else have any questions on that? Do you guys follow what's going on here? Okay, good. That's a great a great observation, Tabs, that you went and noticed that. Now, there is, because it's an infinitive in Greek, there might be some importance to that, why he used an infinitive there, but generally you'll be fine. Just knowing that it's an infinitive, it's functioning like the subject, that's all you need to, because when you preach this, you're not going to go into these details, obviously, right?
Yes, Pastor.
Let's talk about gerunds this morning. Here we have a gerund. Let me explain what a gerund is to you, but actually the translation is not precise. It's really an infinitive functioning as a noun. None of that better come into your sermon. But it's good that you know this, and all you're going to describe is, well, what is the willing here? And you would just say that the idea is to will, the desire, the want. The want, I have the desire in me to want to do what's right, but the doing of it is not present in me. So you would explain that. But you don't need to get into the grammatical details there. But you do need to know, as the preacher, what is going on here.
Thank you,
Okay.
Pastor.
And this is a good basic diagram, because it tells you, the reason why he says nothing good dwells in me, that is in my flesh. And I know this, he says, because basically these two connected reasons. All right. Well, let's see. I've just got one more. We've got one more verse. Let's try this. Jason, let me have you take this one on. Can you identify the prepositional verb in here? Is there one? Potential one.
1 Corinthians 7:13, and a woman who has an unbelieving husband and he consents to live with her, she must not send her husband away. To live with.
Okay. Well, we're looking for prepositional verb. So to live. Oh, I got you. To live with. So to live with, or to live plus with, or that's why I chose this verse, consent to. All right. What is your initial thought, Jason? If you had to guess, what do you think's going on here?
I think that it will make sense if just reading the statement. Consents is an independent verb in a sense that it does not connect to the two.
Yeah.
And then to live is infinitive, and then with it somehow gives us the idea of prepositional verb, to
Yeah.
live with.
So something like this. Consent is a regular finite verb. To live is an infinitive. And then with her is where he lives. Okay? So let's see. Again, our first check. We'll go to the interlinear just to see what we see there. Whoops, wrong one. And this is 1 Corinthians 7:13. All right. Tell me what you see.
Yeah, the consent is dependent verb.
Yeah. So we have consents, we have to dwell,
Yeah.
which is an infinitive, just like you said, Jason.
Yeah.
And it's not to dwell with, because notice,
There's a preposition. There's another preposition.
yep. So your inclination, your assumption was correct. You guys all see that? We have the verb, then we have the infinitive, to dwell or to live. Then we have with her, the prepositional phrase.
Hmm.
So going back to our notes, that's exactly what, just like he said, it's consents to live with her. Now, and then if we want, we could look at, let's do it quickly. We'll look at the other translations just to see. English I'm sorry, what? It's 1 Corinthians 7:13. So NAS has consents to live with her. The English Standard says consents to live with her. The New International is willing. So they translated consents as is willing to live with her. New King James is willing to live with her. See that?
Mm-mm.
The Holman translation is willing to live with her. All right. So that, but they're still retaining the infinitive and then the prepositional phrase. And the Net Bible is happy to live with her. Okay, but I think consents is the best word to use, but they all follow the same, a similar idea here. Okay. All right, so let me just do the diagram real quick and we'll finish for this morning. All right, and a woman, all right, who has, so that's modifying woman, which woman who has an unbelieving husband, and he consents to live with her, she must not send her husband away. Okay, this is an interesting construction. This is how I would do it. I think there's an implication of it's conditional. All right. The main sentence or clause is she must not send her husband away. Technically, away would be where. Okay, and it's under this condition. If a woman who has an unbelieving husband and he consents to live with her, she must not send her husband away. That's how we do it. Now, this is very interpretive because I'm presuming that this is a condition of the action. The action is must not send. When is, under what condition? If a woman who has an unbelieving husband and he consents to live with her. And this might be, I have to think about that. But notice to live is the object of the verb consents. So this infinitive is functioning like a noun. Okay? All right. Again, guys, I understand this is some pretty technical stuff. It's pretty advanced what we're doing here. And so I know that, it can be a challenge to try to, sort through all these things. We're going to get to a place in a few weeks, Lord willing, where we'll be doing full diagrams of passages together and things like that. But I'm really just trying to give you some exposure. So if you didn't understand or capture everything we talked about this morning, I mean, don't don't give up. Don't don't stop joining us. But I'm just trying to give you some exposure. And if certain things didn't make sense, we've got the videos. You can look them up on YouTube and kind of go back through them. I'm just trying to give you the exposure because these are things you'll have to tackle if you want to really be a diligent exegete as you study the scripture. And so it requires that we are aware of a lot of these different things. And so Tabs, I appreciate, as you talk about, you're doing the diagram and then looking at the interlinear to confirm things, looking at other translations. I think that's exactly what you need to be doing. And so I'm hoping that as you do that, maybe one time you go, oh, I remember that one workshop we had, we were talking about these prepositional verb things, because this verse looks kind of funny to me. Something doesn't seem right. Then I'm hoping just that's you'll be looking at from other things. But Jason, as you showed, when you did the example, your gut was correct. Like, okay, it looks like it should be this, and you were right. And guys, trust your gut. Oftentimes, what you think it looks like is what it is, but it's important to confirm that so that you understand exactly. The better you understand the grammar, the more you can easily interpret it. Right? It's like the key to unlocking the meaning. All right. So, Lord willing, next time we get together, I want to talk a little bit about indirect objects, and then we'll jump back into the connector words so we can get moving forward on getting to some more diagrams. But hopefully this helped you in some ways. Thanks for your patience. Do you guys have any final comments or questions about anything we covered this morning, or is there a passage you've been studying that you had a question about, or anything like that? I'll just open it up here before you guys go. Okay. Well, maybe Gary can focus more on the TV there. We can all watch the cartoon together.
It's Boaz. He's watching Bo, so he won't disturb me.
All right. Well, thank you again for your attention, men, and just enjoy being able to spend this time with you each week. So appreciate that. Let me ask Manny if you could close us in prayer today. I'd appreciate that.